Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 6 of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bas Moreno. Saludos a todos, greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I noticed my voice like sounds deeper. It's like I'm not trying to be extra sexy. It's just like it's as early as we record this episode. It's a Saturday morning as we record this episode. So, and I haven't had my full big dose of coffee yet. So you can follow the podcast on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't be scared by these billionaires messing up the platforms. Follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Rants Podcast. That's all one word. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Social Work Rants and hit the like button on Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Rants Podcast, hit the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that red subscribe button. Thank you for everybody that's been subscribing and rocking. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bass City Entertainment, your home for online holistic self-care, featuring poetry and Zumba. The Zumba is coming. I got to practice. I'm not trying to put myself out there. get into some sort of shape. So it's been a while since I did a class. So it's coming. 2023 is definitely coming. But definitely get the book, Trying Through Pain, How to Maximize Your Full Potential During Hard Times. It's available on Kindle, on paperback in 2023, also on audiobook. So thank you for those who purchased. Thank you. Please leave a review and get it. And also make sure you get the one of the best books of 2022, Latinx and Social Work, Volume 2. It's available in English and in Spanish. I definitely get your copies. A lot of amazing stories featuring some of your favorite social workers that doing amazing work in the field. And one of the co-authors of the Amazon #1 bestseller, Dr. Leti Cavazos. How you doing?
Good. How are you this morning?
Good, good, good. Thank you for coming on a Saturday morning. We've been spending quite a bit of time talking about getting ready for this upcoming summit on March 4th, featuring some of us New York, New Jersey folks invading Dallas. It might not it may not be such a wonderful experience for us New Yorkers coming in and spending what the Cowboys do playoffs. But no, I'm looking forward to it. As soon as you put it out there, I was like, we got to go. They're like telling my wife, I was like, come on, we got we got to do this. The kids can miss one day at school. Let's go. It's like we got to go. So
yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be so amazing having everybody here.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I've never been to Texas. It actually would be like the furthest out in the U.S. I've been. So or at least
Wow.
west on the west side. So it's like
We gotta make sure it's a good Texas experience.
yes. So no, looking forward to it, and I already hit up a couple social work peers that are in Texas, like, hey, I'm coming. So like, they're like, okay, I need the details. Or like, as soon as I get them, I'll give it to you. So hopefully we'll have a great turnout. Like the book launch in New York that we had like it was like 200 people, and it was super amazing. So Dr. Leti, thank you again for coming on. And for those who don't know who you are, let people know who you are, what you do in our wonderful yet challenging field of social work.
Absolutely. So I'm Dr. Leti Cavazos, and so I'm a social worker. I have my doctorate in social work, my master in social work, and I'm the founder and CEO of Canneta Center for Healing and Empowerment, which is a for-profit counseling center, group counseling center. And we created it to serve the Hispanic community in the DFW area. And then we expanded to San Antonio as well. And what we found is that there were a lot of people who were ready for healing, but couldn't afford it or didn't have insurance. And so we created the Canneta Foundation. So I'm the founder of Canneta Foundation. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we raise money to help subsidize the cost of counseling while also elevating bilingual social workers and counselors, because there aren't enough of us in the community to serve the need. And so it keeps us busy because we're doing both and really trying to address the needs out there in the community. So on top of that, like that's my main passion and goal. And then I do other things. I teach and I do speaking engagements and things like that.
You gotta stay busy sometimes. So that's a lot. And how did you get started doing that? And I also say that from a business perspective because I spent a lot of time advocating for grad schools to teach, business fundamentals. You gear us to do private practices, but there's no business fundamentals courses being taught. So it's like how you gear us one way without teaching like the basic fundamentals like taxes and like how to run a business and market that business and like all that goes into is like little details, even like setting up like business emails and it's all this stuff, the little things that your popular IG like business people don't talk about. And it's like when you try to start something and it's like, damn, it's a lot.
Yeah, so it is a lot. And let me tell you, before I started the practice, I was in nonprofit management for many, many years. And I was I ran programs, I developed programs. So C-suite, in the nonprofit arena. And when I went to school to get my doctorate degree, that was the first time that they offered classes that were like on strategic planning and budgeting and things like that to help you with, how to manage grants, all of those things that you didn't learn in your master's program. It was the first time that I really learned a lot of that stuff. Being that I was already in management, I knew a little bit about, donors and volunteers and making sure that you're what is the word I'm looking for? That you're managing the narrative that's out there about the work that you do, right? And so when I started this, it wasn't too long ago. During 2020, I was working in my job and it was amazing. And I stopped and like everybody else in the world and thought, what am I doing with my life? And I thought, I've been building programs for so many people my whole career, and it's time now for me to do something for me. And so I made the proposal that I wanted to start a business to my husband, and him being a business or marketing major, he asked me to write a business business plan to present to him. And so that was the first time I had to like, this is serious. Like I need to really have a plan. I can't just throw myself out there. Right. And so I had to sit and think about, what am I going to do? Who am I going to serve? How am I going to market it? How am I going to make income? What is it going to look like? And it really challenged me to do those things that we didn't learn in school. And once I was able to get that together, then I had this concept of, okay, what am I going to serve? Where's the gap in services in the community that needs to be addressed? And it naturally went to the Hispanic community. There weren't enough services out there. The population in Texas, the Hispanic community is going to be the majority across the country in a few years. Wow. And so Texas is almost 50% Hispanic. And I'm going to go back and forth, but what we learned, ASWB, when they released their stats of the pass rate, is that those individuals who are bilingual that are Hispanic are passing at such a lower rate. And if they're not passing, they aren't out there serving the community. So we had to figure out a way also to elevate, our bilingual brothers and sisters to get, how do I help you get to this point where you can help serve the community also? Right. And so all of that came together in what we do.
No, that it's great how many great ideas have come from to the pandemic. Like we had like kind of like a pause of just life, and some of us didn't have that pause. I was still like working and doing an occasional home visit, like emergency basis
Yeah.
in terms of like housing recertifications or Medicaid recertifications that still needed to be done, and I had my N95 mask and had like my blue gloves, so it was like looking like Blue Man Group, and did a lot. I did a lot of walking because I like refused to take the train and bus in New York. So,
Oh
but
yeah, I didn't even think about that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, and the whole move of moving to Delaware and a whole new state in the midst of pandemic and working and switching jobs, the whole gamut. So it's a
Yeah.
very interesting time. How was like besides so you decided opening your business in 2020, like how besides that must have been like interesting and yet kind of scary, like what's out there. Like the need is there. The need has always been there, like especially for serving Hispanic Latino communities and just I guess COVID kind of made it seem like even like more like I kind of saw it like when I like moved to Delaware. Is like the need is out there and it's like
Mhm.
okay, like how do you best try to like serve them? So like what was that experience like for you?
Serving the community like during 2020 was challenging because where I worked was a residential program, and we served women who were leaving crisis. The
Mm-hmm.
crisis didn't stop during COVID. The
Mm-hmm.
abuse didn't stop during COVID. And so people were still seeking housing. So since I was their leader, I was the one that would have to go in and set up the virtual interviews with the caseworker and the client, get them moved in, make sure that they were settled, and all of that, and that was one of the things that really struck me, because I didn't want my team to come in, if it wasn't safe, but I was constantly putting myself out there. And I think that, we do that a lot. As social workers, we know that we have to, that's our heart, to serve, but the suffering, the pain doesn't stop. Like the
Mm-hmm.
world's still going, that the issues
Yeah.
are still there. And so we had to really pivot, like, how do we do virtual when these are people's lives, they need the comfort, they need to know somebody's there with them.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, being scared and vulnerable to this
Mhm.
unknown virus that's you can't see it and is like killing people left and right, and is like wondering if I'm gonna get it. Like I, how like it was scary. Like even like for me, like kind of puts like your own like think about your own mortality, and it's like okay, well I gotta do something. If something does happen, like I know I ended up like having it without knowing I had it for a while, and it's like because when they finally had those antiviral tests out and like tested positive for that, so they were like, it's like what did that mean? They were like, did I have it and without knowing it? They're like, yeah, you had it, like but you negative now. But I was like, oh, like damn, like so it was like it was scary. It was like how the heck did you get it and like just you just living your daily life and you just not knowing whether like
Yeah.
you catch something and it's like now you're looking people funny that like we were cool and it's like hear people coughing and it's like I, I was like you turning your head is like ¿qué te pasa? Like, so much like but it's just like it's been a fascinating time like 3 years in a scary time fascinating time like those we are just now starting to see the kind of like the aftermath of everything. And like you said, like people are
Mhm.
still struggling. People are like nothing has changed. If anything, for many people, it's gotten
Right.
worse because people like lost their jobs. People's like slowly losing their housing. People's starting to go back to housing course again. Like I lost my job now, I can't afford rents, and now landlords want their money and from a landlord perspective, like, well, rightfully so, but it's like people are struggling, people like trying to like figure things out and like, you know, companies are trying to figure out ways to even save money more. So like people are like layoffs are happening. We got inflation now. It's a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that people didn't recognize that. I think my frustration during COVID, if we want to be transparent, was that, people were giving a lot of kudos to the nurses and the doctors, which rightfully so, but nobody was really recognizing the social workers that were still out there. We were still out there, we were still putting ourselves, in this position to how do we help? And we can't do that in our homes at the same level. If people need food or if people need, even just comfort, we can't do that if we're just sitting at home. But there was not the level of acknowledgement for the work that we were doing across the country.
And it's still not. It's funny you say that because I say that all the time, and even like during the whole, at least in New York, before I left the Delaware, like they were doing like 7 o'clock. Everybody was doing the clapping for all the nurses and doctors and stuff, and then I I I was clapping, but I was clapping for me. My daughter was, I think it was my son, my daughter. One of them was like, "What are you clapping? Like they're not clapping for you." It's like I'm clapping for me too. Like I'm like an essential worker. Like I'm the one. I'm out here like risking getting COVID. Like I'm helping my clients. Many of them like working with the senior population. Many of them like kind of outlived everybody, so they don't have supports. So it's like I'm the only main support. Like I'm like hurting my feet walking because I refuse to take a train and bus and walking like miles like to do home visits and walking home, and it's like try to protect you guys from like you guys don't get sick. So I'm gonna clap for myself on
And
top of
sometimes that's what
everybody
we need to
else.
do. We need to clap for ourselves.
But yeah, I told her like, and we still don't get the recognition because even recently, a few months ago, there was a shooting that happened in one of the Texas hospitals, and they focused on the nurse that was shot and
Yep.
killed, but there was a social worker that was shot too, and that there was like nothing in like any like news articles about the social worker being killed. But why is like what's up with that?
Yeah, and I think there's still this lack of understanding of so many levels. Oh my gosh, we could talk about this for hours.
Yes.
So many levels of people not understanding how much we put ourselves out there. How many times we put ourselves in a very vulnerable position for the sake of the client, right? Because we want to help them. How many times that we're doing the work that people don't understand. They think, oh, anybody can be a social worker. You just go out and help people. They don't understand the training and the professionalism behind it. It's not a job anybody can do. And I think it's unfortunate because at least here in Texas, there was some talk, I don't know if they ended up doing it or not, but like with the CPS workers, they lowered the requirements to an associate's degree, and you didn't even have to have one in a social service. You could have it in basket weaving and be a caseworker. And how are we serving people if the people that they're hiring aren't trained professionals? This is not an easy field. You have to know what you're doing.
It's funny you said that because that's exactly how I got into into social services. Like I got hired as a temp, bachelor of arts. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and then like went through a temp agency. They were like, "We got this job for you." Ended up being casework and did that for 3 years, and eventually I went back. Okay, I was get my master's and learn all this stuff, but I was kind of have these already fundamentals that I learned by on the job training and helping people and stuff like that. So
let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So when you went back and you got your master's degree, after you got that training, did you think back like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? I didn't even know what I was doing before.
It's like when you do foster care work, is like you kind of see like the gamut a good gamut of what's out there in the field, because I had a client who had HIV. I had was dealing with mental illness. I was dealing with drug and alcohol use. I think the masters helped me kind of see the dynamics in terms of drugs and alcohol, how it affects like the whole family. Because I was like, there were a couple of times I was kind of forced to do like a family session with a couple, and I was like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like, you trying to? It was like they both kind of like wanted to be clean, and is like trying to work things out in their relationship, and like they didn't know how to be in a relationship without using. So it was like, I can no training and how to help you.
Yeah.
Like you're one of the first people like I really knew who like use like real hard like substances. So it was like, or I had used and did the whole rehab and try to be clean and stuff. So I was like, I ain't got no training in that. So I was like, so that I think the masters kind of like build those foundations. And I had a good supervisor in like the second job I had. It took a few supervisors, but one who had went to Fordham, was had a degree. And I was like, you're gonna see this in school. You're gonna see this in school, and this was gonna happen, and this and then. So when I took those classes, I was like, like that. That what she was
Yeah.
talking about. Okay, like that makes sense. So, but it took a while. It took like I graduated in 2010, and it was like, and I started in 2002, very beginning 2002. So it took that about that long to really kind of see like everything. And there's always stuff that you just learn in the field. You got to put yourself out there and kind of make those mistakes without. You want to make as minimal mistakes and you're affecting people's lives, but as long as if you make mistakes and it's just like not affecting people's lives, then like obviously you got to make mistakes in order to learn. But
Yeah.
definitely like it kind of helped. But I definitely like thinking back now, like years later, and it's like, man, why didn't you teach this? Like we,
Yeah.
especially us, like no, no African Americans, no Latinos, like we would be like killing it, and like financially they wouldn't be like this talk like there's no money in social work. Like we'd be like you started a whole business, and look so we'd be like, if I would have had these fundamental stuff, like I probably would have like started my business years ago, and be you would be like expanding to like another state probably, or a couple of states, and hiring people and have like a whole like team. So it's like I wish like they would like
Yeah.
at least
Well,
start now,
I
especially
think
after
that
COVID.
I think that the two things I want to go to is that that's exactly on point. What I was trying to say earlier is that when I got my bachelor's degree was very general. It was human relations, so it was kind of psychology, sociology, and I was already running programs at that point. And then I got my master's degree and I thought, oh my gosh, what was I doing? I didn't know what I was doing. Now I know what I'm doing. And then I got my doctorate degree and I was like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? So every time I learn more and more, but I wouldn't have learned that had I not gone to school for that, right?
Mm,
Like I wouldn't have known all of these things. On the flip side, I think that there has to be more conversations because I think master's programs are wonderful, but they teach you how to be a social worker. They don't teach you how to be a supervisor or a leader or an entrepreneur in this field. They don't teach you that social work can be applied across profit and nonprofit in corporate America and in human services, that you can choose where you want to go with that and help you understand. I think I had one class on they I think it was called transformational leadership, and you had to create your own nonprofit.
mm,
And it took a while, it was a semester long, but I walked away from there. I kind of had an idea, but I really didn't have an idea.
yeah.
And so it wasn't until I started doing this, and if it wasn't for the help of a lot of amazing people that had been doing it, that came in and said, let me show you how to do this. Let me show you a shortcut. Let me show you so you learn from my mistakes. We had to pull together and teach each other. We had in my center, we had the idea to bring together as many Hispanic counselors in the area as possible. So we started doing these café con consejeros once a month. And we started meeting each other and learning what each other were doing, what population you were serving. And as I started developing those friendships, everybody, you know how we are, everybody was like, I'll show you how to do this. Don't, come sit with me and don't feel like you have to struggle through this alone. I've already been there. Let me help you. And we all helped each other. And we still do. As people come and say, hey, can you mentor me or can you show me how to do this? Absolutely. Let's do it together. But those are things that aren't there in school. And if you don't find those people, then you're out there trying to figure it out yourself. And there's a lot I know now. I appreciate, thank you everybody that ever worked with me. I appreciate people that were in marketing and how much work that is, the grant writers, the donor relations. That alone is like so much work. And on top of that, you're trying to serve clients, right? And so if you don't know about all of that, it is such a huge learning curve to try to figure all that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part, at least with my experience, is that they don't really get. I had one professor that was like, that took like a piece of paper, everybody write their phone number down. I'm gonna make copies. Like, this is your network, use that. And I think that was like one of the mistakes that I did, was like, I can literally count on one hand how many people I went to grad school with that I still keep in contact. And that's like Facebook friends too. So it's like not kind of be out there, and it's like now is like, I think a book kind of helps to like have that, oh, this is going on, I need help with this, and it's like people have an answer for you. And it's like that it took this long to finally like kind of see like, oh, okay, there's people like, I'm interested in doing this, and there's somebody doing it that I could like kind of reach out and like, hey, like doing this, I had this idea, kind of like piggyback like what you think. So no, definitely appreciative. And that you can't help what you don't know. And I think people like kind of, there's like this like stigma there, or people make fun of you for that. Like, you can't help what you don't know. If you like isolated yourself or whatever, or circumstances have happened as like you don't know the situation, and now like you have this idea but you don't know how to try to like implement it, then you don't have resources for it, then you kind of like stuck. So it's like, it's a lot. I think for those MSW students that do listen to the podcast or watch that, like, this is some of the things that hope that you could, talk to your schools about, talk to your advisors, talk to like, higher ups in these schools, and see if they can make, or at least if they're willing to listen, so that things like this, like, you're not falling into a trap that you have an idea or make some decent money when you graduate.
Yeah. And I think that you make a great point, because I didn't realize that not everybody's MSW program didn't have that cohesiveness or that peer support. When I graduated, I went to school at the University of Texas in San Antonio and worked in that community afterwards for a while. And everybody I met through the program, everybody I went to school with, every people I met that were ahead of me, that were behind me, we all created this network and supported each other, and everybody knew what everybody did and who specialized in what, and who, they could pick up the phone and call. And when I moved up here to Dallas, Fort Worth area, I realized that the schools up here don't have that. And I remember asking one of my employees, we were looking for somebody to help run the hotline, or to work at the hotline. And I said, don't you have anybody in your classes that is looking for a job, that wants to come answer phones on the hotline? And she said, oh, I don't really know my classmates. I just go to class. And that blew my mind. I was like, what? How do you not know who you go to class with? Don't you guys do group work? Because that's where you really get to know
Yeah.
people. And I didn't realize that there was that lack of collaboration and support and just partnership and relation in some of the programs. And that's so important in the work we do. We have to have each other because this is hard work. This is not work you can do by yourself.
And also, like, even where at places at work, like, I know there's always this like kind of like, maybe stigma is a strong word, but it's always like, don't make friends with your coworkers and stuff like that. But you need some of these coworkers, or even like if you're cool with a supervisor and then they leave and then you want to leave too, and it's like, hey, do you know somebody? Like, I'm trying to get out of this job, and like, things happen, and you need to move and move on and trying to change jobs and stuff. So you build those networking connections through the job. So that's how, like, landed in many different spots that I've had, or I had to get my own internship and I had like my own past supervisor that helped me out get it when I was in school. So it was like, you have to find something. You can't just be like just this one person, like, I'm trying to go and change the world and do this and do that, and then like you're gonna be stuck. Like, your network is definitely like your net worth, and you gotta put yourself out there.
I love that. Your
Now
network
I'm
is
still learning that because I'm from New York. I'm gonna look at you funny first, and then be like, "All right, you cool, you cool, you cool."
I think that's the difference between New York and Texas. In Texas, everybody's your friend, and everybody's gonna be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
So let's get into the. I don't read a lot of books, but or at least I start them and then I don't finish them. But I read this front and back, and even as I've interviewed other uh, co-authors and been on the podcast and like reread the chapters just to educate myself more and be like, have a intelligent conversation for the podcast and researching and stuff. But this amazing chapter, uh, there was a lot of similarities in our chapters in the book. Talking about, and it's weird because I know just the book, like, know I did everybody, like, I don't know that well. Obviously, like, either I follow on social media or one or two I've had on the podcast, and like we talked and stuff, but it's like, I don't know you, and then to like read a book and read a chapter and be like hearing about people's past relationships that they had, and like their trauma in their relationships, dealing with drug alcohol use, dealing with like having a partner drug alcohol use, or just struggles with identity and like cultural assimilation into like the US, and like I'm Hispanic Latino, but like there's like the typical like whatever that even means, but it's like I know who I am, as like people need to like just like figure out like who or what are you, like. It's like so I read your chapter. It was like I dealt with that, but not like in terms of, sometimes in terms of culture, but more so is like, you're not from the Bronx. I'm like, yeah, I am. I just because I never like hanging out in the street. I never saw the hanging out on the stoop. Like, why? I've always been a homebody and just like wanted to be there's a game going on like in 4 hours. I gotta get ready to watch the game. Even though it's like 12 o'clock at noon, the game doesn't start till 7. But just like always like watching a lot of TV and like never like really going out. And it's like it wasn't until like way into my adulthood that like wanted to like go out and go clubbing a little bit. And even then, I didn't do too much of that either. So it was like to be like, you're not. Or I used to have, when I had hair, my hair was like slicked back. Like people used to call me like joking like Pat Riley, and like hair slicked back. So I cut it like freshman year of college, and then like it never really grew back appropriately. So it was like when I had my hair black, is people thought I was like Mexican. I was like, I'm not Mexican, I'm Puerto Rican. It was like like, no, you're not. Having like arguments like who I am. And it's like, so it's
It's
interesting.
so funny how people want to tell you what you are, right?
Yeah,
They want
exactly.
to identify you for you, in case
Yeah.
you didn't know. This is who you are.
I did a lot of that in high school. That it was like in college, it was like, all right, you just look at me, I'm a Hispanic person, just like where you from, what background you are. But it was definitely high school. You was either in high school, you were either obviously Latino or African American. There might have been like one white student, and she was like half white. It was like half white, half Puerto Rican. Um, there was a couple Mexican, couple Ecuadorians, mostly either Puerto Rican or Dominican, mostly, and Mexican. That was kind of like the dynamics, and like teachers like mostly white or African American. It was like Caribbean, some Puerto Rican teachers, but it was right in smack down in the middle of the South Bronx.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
your book is like kind of, especially mentioned like your first husband and meeting, and then like all the machismo stuff, and like you having a military family background, and it's like not finding that balance to try to mix everything. Tell tell listeners how that experience was that for you.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. I think that, my parents or my dad chose to join the military just to figure out, how to make a better life for himself. Because he was born and raised, both my parents in the small same town in South Texas. And at one point it was kind of a hub, for the oil business, but it hadn't been for a while and there wasn't much going on. And I remember, so before my mom and dad married, he had joined the military and then he got out after, I guess, 4 years and tried to see, make a life in the civilian world. And he just couldn't find a good job. And so he went back to the military, and that's when my parents got married. And it provided a really good life for us. But on the flip side, we were never in the States. We were always overseas, always. And so our identity was we were American, when we lived in Okinawa or Panama or Germany, or, we were American. And that kind of stuck with us. I didn't really understand the Hispanic culture, because even though my parents spoke Spanish, we ate Mexican food, like my dad would play the conjuntos on Sunday morning loud so everybody could hear in the neighborhood, right? Like I didn't understand that was different until we moved to the States. And then I remember freaking out. We were going to go to an American school and with people that were civilians. I mean, and I didn't, because the other part of that is when you grow up in the military, you don't see diversity as far as socioeconomic status. Everybody's kind of the same. And I had never been in a school where there were people that were so poor that, they were trying to figure out where to live, or they were living with other people, or people that were so rich they had more money than they knew what to do with. Like that was so foreign to me. And then coming in and trying to identify who I was, like, how do I fit into this world? Because on top of that, a lot of the kids went to school together since they were
Right.
kindergarten, right? And here I'm coming in, teenager, dressing funny, because we had just come from Germany, so I had a lot of European clothes, and not speaking like they speak, not dressing like them, not acting like them. It was really a time of it. And I hate to make a parallel, but it was almost like acculturation, trying to assimilate to the American culture, because I hadn't been around it other than in the bases overseas. And so it took a long time for me to try to figure out who I was and how do I own this, and how can I be proud of who I am, because there's a lot of feeling like I don't belong. I don't belong with other Hispanics. I can't call myself Latina if I don't speak Spanish. I understand Spanish, but I can't get it out or the way I'm supposed to.
Right.
And so it was a lot of soul searching of who that was. And I think that with my first husband, that's what attracted me so much to him, because he was like from this small town. He had a huge family, and they all did everything together, and they did all the, the tias and tios and the piñatas and the picnics and the, everything, right? That I never experienced. And I just was so drawn to that I didn't see the red flags with him, because even he would tell me, oh, you just think you're better than everybody else. You just think you're white. And I didn't know what that meant. And it meant that I was different. And he didn't know how to handle that. Like, I was not like all the people he grew up with.
Right. Yeah, it's like the quote unquote, you're acting white. So it's just fascinating. And it's like a parallel is like you like attract to somebody, and then like it's like, wow, like you're different from what I'm used to. And it's funny how you like totally like miss those red flags or disregard the red flags. And it's like you're it, like there's nobody, like never met somebody like you. You just like different. There might be maybe one other person, like I'm like at least has certain similarities, but in terms of like just kind of like a complete package, and then you're in it, then you're like, and now you kind of
Yeah.
like kind of, maybe like stuck is not the right word, but it's like like all right, now it's like now how you get out. oh, what's going to be the sign to get out?
There were so many expectations of me that I didn't even know I was supposed to be doing, like his mom was a good wife, and she cleaned the house top to bottom every weekend, cleaned the windows, cleaned the baseboards, I wasn't doing that, and so he's like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you doing that? And for dinner, he expected whatever I made had to have rice and beans with it. I had to teach myself how to make rice and beans. Today, I couldn't make rice and beans to save my life, because I think I blocked it from my memory. But it was an expectation. If I made something else that didn't have rice and beans, that wasn't dinner.
Wow. It's and it's a kind of and parallels to how clients that we serve who deal with things like that, and is like, I love him or her, or I love that person, and is like, or you may not have like the expectation of change. I think that's more like change the person. I think that's kind of like 90s, early 2000s kind of like mentality, but it's like you're in it, and then like COVID happens, and now it's like things are, now you're in the house together like 24/7, and it's like huge, like you already saw the red flags, you trying to get out, and now you like really can't. And now as COVID restrictions like ease and stuff, and then like people are, are struggling, still struggling even more. And we're taught about like the DV cycle and in grad schools and things like that, or in our workplaces. And it's like how do we help individuals, and it's not just females, it's also men too that kind of be stuck too. And it's like, and like the laws are not in favor of males in terms of getting custody. Or I see a lot of men just in general be like, all right, you can have the custody, I just want the visitation. I'm like, pero like you're not gonna fight for your kid? Like you had the kid, like, and if you have the financial means, or you got a place to stay, like why don't you fight and just automatically let mom care for the kid? And it's like, no, I don't want to deal with the hassle of fighting, or I don't want like like I'll just pay for the child support and that'll be it. Like no, like you gotta like be there in your kid's life, and if you're just entitled, like you're naturally DNA, you're the natural parent, like fight for your kid. And it's like I don't get that. Even if you lose, you lose, but at least like you can let your child know, like, hey, I fought for you. Like you can never say like I ain't fight for
Yeah.
you. Like it's just like those laws need to change too. So it's like kind of like both see this like dynamic of just everything.
Yeah. And I think so my doctoral research was on male victims of domestic violence
Mm,
with female perpetrators, right? And that I hear what you're saying, but I hope that the laws, the courts have caught up to the dynamics that are happening, because there is this belief that a lot of times that the kids are better with their mom, right? They're better being raised with their moms. But what we're finding out is that sometimes females can be the abuser also. And when you're automatically putting them with their moms, you're putting them in an unhealthy, unsafe environment. And so hopefully when I was doing my research, it men were getting protective orders at a lower rate. They were getting custody of their kids at a lower rate. They were being arrested at a higher rate, even though they were the ones being abused. They weren't arresting the female, that was the perpetrator.
you're right.
And so men were being stuck in these situations where they were being abused, like being abused, uh, and not getting the protection and the support that they needed. And as a result, they were resorting to having to go to homeless shelters just to escape, that were not prepared for somebody dealing with trauma, escaping trauma,
Mm,
right? And so hopefully, I'm hoping that we're, as a society, we're doing that work to realize that it goes both ways. Of course, majority of the numbers are still out there that men are perpetrators at a higher rate than women. But when women are the aggressor, women use more deadly force because they don't have the physical strength to do it
right.
like men do. So they use deadly force. They use weapons. They use, like, I had men in that we were serving in the shelter that had been thrown hot oil on them, or been stabbed, or put a gun to them. It was more aggressive.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I definitely hope these like laws change. And what's weird about it is that is you see most a lot of, especially in towards the top, mostly men in the politics, and it's like you never hear them talk about trying to change these laws. It's like kind of like the adage of like, look how dumb men are.
Well, I think it goes to that men are embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah, that's true too.
And I
Yes.
talk about that in my research, that there's so many expectations of what it is to be a man in
Mm,
society, that men have all this shame of coming forward to say, this female was abusing me.
yeah, there's
I
definitely a
was
lot of
in this
shame.
abusive. Mhm. Instead of saying I need help, men aren't taught to do that
Mm,
generally.
yeah. No, definitely. I hope that continues to change. I mean, we see that slowly, and we see a lot of like men supporting other men in terms of groups and individual therapy, and a lot of I've seen so many more male therapists and therapists of color on top of that, and really kind of really provide that support. And I know, Charlemagne, with his platform, talks a lot about mental health, and especially for men, and just mental health in general. So the talk is out there, is a slowly changing. So hopefully that will
Yeah.
continue. So let's talk about the summit, March 4th.
March 4th. Yes.
I'm
Oh,
excited.
that is going to be so exciting, because I think the stories that we tell are so important, because as, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on left field, but I feel like as a Hispanic society, we were taught so much to just keep our heads down and don't make any waves. Just do your work hard, don't make any waves. But so our voices aren't elevated the way that other cultural groups elevate their voices. And the scary part about it is that we bring our identities to our work and how we serve others. And so these stories, I think, are perfect for kind of helping people, other Hispanic social workers, feel heard, feel validated, feel like experiences are normalized, and it does translate into how we serve others. And so with the summit, we're going to actually have the authors coming and telling parts of their stories, engaging in conversation with whoever's, attends. Everybody that comes is going to get a copy of the book, and they'll have an opportunity to meet the authors, get their books autographed, ask questions, and just be a part of the conversation and continue the conversation.
No, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting, different people and build those connections. And like what you said, like kind of like struck a chord is like definitely like I've always been like the quiet type and kind of like, but have like my eyes open and like my ears open, and especially going back to foster care, like I learned a lot. Even I learned very early about job security and like the lack of job security that exists, and it's like, and especially when the company, like the city, put them on probation. So it's like, all right, like kind of like learning about where the money goes and like funding stuff. So it's like I've always been like, all right, what's out there, and we kind of like unintentionally kind of like put ourselves out there, like you, because it's so few of us in the field. Like I'm always like the one Latino male social worker, or I'm the one male and everybody else is is female, and it's like, so you stick out like a sore thumb without like intentionally. You just there trying to get paid, do your work, and like get out and support your family, support yourself, like whatever your situation is. And it's just, I'm just here to work, and then everybody else wants to throw like all the extra stuff like on top of you, but you're dealing with your own stuff. And like we've been talking about my conversations, like with your past relationships, what you're working on now in terms of your business, and I talked about my past relationships and everything else that I went through in 2014, even before that, like in raising my kids and like try to leave like a legacy for them, and while also talk about past. And it's weird how we like grieving like the same person, but how we grieve differently or refuse to grieve. So it's like kind of a interesting dynamic. And then you got like the other family members as well. And it's like, do you talk about the person? Do not talk about the person, or you kind of see things. So it's like, and all that stuff, hey, like you're struggling and I'm struggling, like it's okay. Like you're struggling, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to keep pushing. Like what I'm feeling or what I'm doing, like it just normalizes. Like we're humans just as much as everybody. Like we like we like need help too, and we're always like one or two bad decisions away. We be right in the same situation like a client, and sometimes we're clients too. So it's like it's important to like have these conversations, like and again, looking forward to it. I got my plane ticket like real quick. Like I'm already thinking about next year's taxes or write off the business expense. So it's like, and
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to come
yeah.
and just be a part of the bringing this to the community, because I think we need it. And our goal for this year and our 5-year goal is to lead the conversation on Hispanic mental health. And this is a start to have the conversation about who's there to serve the community, and we're having in the fall, we're having a conference, which hopefully some of the speakers will come and speak at. And it's the Hispanic Mental Health Conference. It's going to be kicked off the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month. And we have an amazing keynote speaker. And we're going to be having conversations about how do we serve the Hispanic community best. And one of the things that we know that we're learning is that a lot of the modalities that we learn, a lot of the assessments that we use were not written for people of color. And so they're scoring higher than they should be because it's not taking into consideration the cultural dynamics and practices of the individuals we serve. So really trying to look at how do we best serve the Hispanic community. And our keynote is Dr. Nacho Herrero from EMDR. He's like a EMDR guru, world renowned. He wrote the protocol for group EMDR and community EMDR for community disasters. And so between the two, the summit and the conference, like we want to really elevate and talk about it. Let's not brush it under the rug. Let's not, this is something that we keep in the house. This is, oh, he's just being chiflado. Don't worry about it. He'll get over it. Like this, let's talk about it. What's really happening?
No, absolutely. And it even goes back to within you mentioned our own families and like having those conversations within the family is like, you need to talk to somebody. Like it's okay. Like I can't be like your springboard because I'm in the field. Like no, like I got my own things. Like is like setting boundaries, and I know it's hard within like our culture is like boundary guess, and it's like just is that a new curse word? That's like just Gen X curse word. Like what is that? So it's like no, it's like being serious, like or having like that expectations, like oh you're in the field. Like let me ask you this, and I was like. I tell people all the time, I'm off the clock, like just because I got my license. It's like I'm off the clock. Like I'm just trying to relax. I pick things up unless I'm doing something with podcasting or I'm doing something with the Latinx book or my poetry book or whatever else I decide to do. Like no, I'm off the clock.
Yep.
Now
I get a
what's
lot of
up?
those calls.
Now what's that like? You want to do what are the hours of the summit? Is it like a 1 day summit? Like where is it going to be at? Like
Yeah, so it's a 1-day summit. We are it's going to be at Dallas College Mountain View, which is in the Oak Cliff community in Dallas, and that's a predominantly Hispanic community, underserved community, and so it's going to be great to be there because hopefully some people from the community will come also in here. So it's 1 day. It's March 4th. It's going to be from 9 to 1 is the actual event. We'll open at 8, and for people who are sponsoring, we're going to have a VIP breakfast before the event starts, and then after the talk, we'll do the meet and greet and autographing and picture taking and all of that, so people can interact with everybody. And we're still talking about trying to put together a lunch after that. So anybody that wants to continue the conversations can come join us for lunch and just all hang out. So we're working on a location for that, but it's going to be phenomenal. We have some great sponsors. We're going to have a great moderator. Like it is going to be so much fun, and people are going to just feel just excited to also tell their story, hopefully, and to understand how important it is for us to speak about our stories.
no, it's definitely beyond it important to have these conversations to just individually kind of like put yourself out there and meet these connections, and you just never know what the universe is going to bring back, and kind of like put it out in the universe and let God do his magic, and like I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the 5 hour plane ride, but I'm looking forward to just
It'll
being
be
there,
fun.
being
Remember, I
there.
flew to New York for the book launch, and it was
I
amazing.
yeah. So
And I had never explored New York City. And
oh,
so that was my intro to New York City. So it was
that
an amazing experience. So you are going to have an amazing time here.
gets no. I know I will, and no, I'm looking forward to. What was the experience, writing your chapter like for you?
Oh, writing it. Writing it was like it really was emotional and but almost freeing to get it out,
Mm,
because for a long time I felt like I had to keep this stuff bottled up, and there was some shame to my experiences because I was, involved with this relationship that wasn't healthy. I didn't pick a good partner. He was abusive. He was a drug addict. And then I got pregnant when I was 19, and I was almost forced to get married because you don't have a child without a name, without a wedlock, right? In our community. So there was a lot of what is everybody going to say if you're not married, right? And so there was all of these decisions that were being made because of my choices,
mm,
but almost feeling like they were out of my control. And so there was so much secrecy around it that when I was writing it, there was a lot of anxiety about what are my parents going to say? What are my sisters going to say when they read this? Because
right.
a lot of those feelings that I put out there, like they didn't even know about because I was struggling by myself. And
No,
so now it's out there for everybody to read.
yes, yes, is out there for better for worse. It is out there, and no, it needs to be talked about. I know, with my chapter, like my circle is very small, so um, those that I talked to at the time, like they knew, and it's like a couple people. It took like social media to realize I put the book out, like talk about it, and like been promoting the book and whatever. So it's like I don't think the my ex-wife's family knew this is out, um, unless they really like kind of pay attention or whatever. So it's like no, is out is my truth, is our truth as us the writers, and we could always walk around it. We like best-selling authors, and it's like just and within like 48 hours, it was like we got the
Yeah.
email, and it's like got the text, the group text, and like oh snap, it was like, and then I went to like the following week, let my writing coach know like, hey, can I call myself this? Because even though I'm not the main author, but like I did write a chapter, it's like yeah, you can use that and use it for your promo stuff, and it's like I'm gonna rock into it. So it's like interesting, like the whole experience has been like great, and just and like, coming back to the very beginning, like we many people I just met for the first time there, like we just met through Zoom a couple times, had a couple Zoom sessions, and it was like meeting people actually there for the first time and not in Zoom. And it's like people look different in person compared to Zoom, and it's like they recognize a couple of people. It's like, oh, stop. And it's like,
I have to say, you said this at the beginning that this was the first time that like Erica did such a great job of bringing people together that were really supportive of each other. And here, like I said it before, like here in Texas, we're all friendly and we all like are so happy to see each other all the time. And I've gone to a lot of networking events, and you meet people for the first time and you're like, hi, how are you?
yeah.
And when I met everybody, the authors that day of the launch, flew to New York, got there, I can't tell you how amazing it felt that every single one of those authors came up to me and were so happy to see me and gave me a hug and thanked me for coming and like introduced themselves and made me feel like family, like right off the bat.
Mm.
Like it was at a higher level than I was used to here. And I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, we need to step it up. Like they made me feel so welcomed. And I was like the most outsider of everybody because I was from Texas and everybody else is kind of from up there.
Yeah.
And every single person I met was just so amazing and so welcoming and loving and just wanted, to me to feel included in everything.
No, yeah, it was great. Like you follow people for a while. Social media is such a great tool if you know how to use it appropriately. And
Yeah.
and then to see same people you follow, see them in person, and it's like, oh, it's not like you following for a while. You've been doing like great work. Keep it up. Like just talking to people and meeting like all the students that were there and kind of like give them a couple of tidbits of what to look for, like or ask them what is. I feel like sometimes like I'm out the loop of what is actually going on in these grad schools, and I was like, what's going on in your school? And it's like, okay, like look out for this, talk about this, and it's like we just being ourselves, and I think that's important too. Just the authenticity of just being yourself and just I think kind of 2020 like because of pandemic like people just being themselves and making money and it was like you could do that now. I think that's such a great way for young people like my like kids my age and younger like you don't got to be like just be yourself and it's like stuff will happen like you obviously got to do the work and do the hard work and but it's like just be yourself. You don't got to be anybody else or like you don't got to be like the next LeBron or like Kobe or like whatever musician you like, whoever's out there now. And it's like you don't got to be the next Bad Bunny or whatever. Just be yourself and think will fall into place as long as you put in the work.
Yeah, I agree.
So where can people find you?
Oh, where they can find me online. They can find me on LinkedIn. So my company again is Canneta Center for Healing and Empowerment. Our website is cannentacenter.com. It's Cannenta. A lot of people ask me what that means, and Canneta is Latin, and it means woman who possesses healing powers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought that was the perfect name for the organization. So my email is dr.leti, Leti, at cannentacenter.com. We're also on cannetafoundation.org. And that's where all the information about the summit's going to be at the cannetafoundation.org. So profits from the summit and from the conference go to help fund counseling for individuals and the cost of testing and supervision for bilingual social workers and counselors. And I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can follow Canneta Center on Instagram. So we're all over the place. We're also on Facebook. So it should be easy to find us, but we would love everybody to follow us and just kind of check out the work we're doing.
Awesome. Keep up the great work. God willing, I'll see you in Dallas. If you see me in some Giants gear, just put your head down. Keep it moving.
That's okay. I don't follow football, so it's good. And even in basketball, I don't the Mavs are up here. But I'm a big Spurs fan, so yeah. They deal with me.
Coach Pop need a social worker the way. so,
He think he's about ready to retire.
On that note, until next time, folks.